Marvelous. Welcome, everybody. And I'm Catherine Brunch of Canine Support. And thank you for joining us today to celebrate 50 years of Tellington TTouch. And I feel very blessed to be joined by Linda Tellington-Jones herself. It is so amazing to have you here, Linda. Thank you so much for coming.
I love what you're doing with this. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Well, I thought 50 years, that's just a couple years older than me, just a few. And it's definitely worth celebrating. So thank you so much for joining me. And I thought we could start off with the circle and a quarter tea touch because that's how it all kind of began, wasn't it? And who better to tell us about the circle and a quarter tea touch than yourself, Linda?
Well, let me tell you actually, the reason we celebrate 50 years is the fact that in 1975, I began the 4-year training with Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais at the Humanistic Psychology Institute in San Francisco. And of course, until that time, we had been, for 20 years, we had been having at our Pacific Coast Equestrian Research Farm, we had a syndicated column. We had we were doing so much already with horses for years in both in magazines and at the research farm. But when I joined the Feldenkrais training, because of the fact that we had been doing all this different studies with horses and all the work that we'd done, when I was in the second day of the training, just lying on the floor doing a Feldenkrais awareness through movement, Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais made the statement that made me prick up my ears, and that was actually the beginning of looking at being with horses in a new way. And that's why it's that 1975 is the 50 year. So the point, when he made a statement that a human could learn in one experience, using very gentle, non-habitual movements of the body without force, that it was possible to activate new potential for learning by developing new neural pathways to the brain. And when he made that statement, I'm lying there on the floor doing an awareness through movement, and I felt like my ears pricked up, Catherine. And I thought, wait a minute, if that's true for a human, could it be we do something with horses that would be gentle, non-habitual movements that would enhance their capacity for learning? Because in those days, it was thought that horses are slow learners and you had to repeat over and over. And I thought, well, I'm going to see, can we actually make a difference in one movement? And so later in that week, I went out and worked with a horse that a friend of mine had brought down from Montana with a group of Arabian broodmares. She'd never been ridden, and yet he would go to catch her to bring her in at night to feed, and he'd have to chase her, and that was every night. And so I thought, well, that's a habit that is, let's see if we can do anything about that. And so he chased her around, caught her up as usual, and I stood there with this mirror. And Catherine, the thing you have to realize at this point, we had already written a book on body work on horses based on the work of my grandfather called Physical Therapy for the Athletic Horse. And we had never considered the possibility that working on a horse's body could affect their behavior or change their habits. And so they catch this mirror, and I'm standing there looking at her, and we'd already had this book that came out, showed work on the legs and different stuff we were doing on the body. But this time I did the work with the visualization, just holding this, what we call infinite possibilities. That's a quantum physics concept. Infinite possibility that I could activate new neural pathways to the brain that would help this horse to learn faster.
Yeah.
And so I was actually holding that possibility in my head. And So it was really interesting. So I just worked on her body for maybe 30 minutes in gentle ways, moving her body in ways that we'd been doing before, never with to improve performance. And that's what we did it for. We found that horses could recover faster after hard endeavors like 100-mile endurance racing that I did a lot of, and steeplechasing and eventing.
Yeah.
And so I just did all these things, but with a different intent,
Mm.
this infinite possibility. And I'll talk about that in a minute later, a little more. And so, I did the work. They turned her out. I went home. And the next morning, this guy called me and he said, listen, I don't know what happened. Something really happened last night because when I went to the gate to catch her, instead of running as usual, she came right to the gate. When I led her into the stall, instead of diving for the hay, she kind of stood there like, do something with me. And I mean, he just couldn't believe it. And I thought, wow, how interesting.
Mm.
And so we started just playing around with moving horses' bodies and moving their legs in different ways. During my Feldenkrais training, I would go after class. We had like 4 days a week in San Francisco at the Humanistic Psychology Institute. And then I'd go out and around the area where I used to live and work with different interesting horses. And so it was so interesting that we really could change behavior. And you could take horses that, for instance, wouldn't step over a pole, wouldn't go over a pole, and just by moving their bodies in different ways, give them new potential for listening and learning without fear. And that was really cool. And the thing is that the circles didn't come up. That was 1975. I made that aha moment that we say, okay, that was the beginning of coming from a place of awareness, bringing awareness to horses. And then it was not until 1983 at the Delaware Equine Veterinary Clinic where I was asked to give a workshop to the clients of veterinarians at the hospital. And they had known my work because I had worked with Dr. Danny Marks and Dr. Matthew McKay Smith for quite a few years. They knew my work from years before that we were doing with endurance riding and all the stuff we did. And they wanted to see what was I doing with this new Feldenkrais concept, with horses. What new awareness? And so they brought me one horse that belonged to one of the vets, and she was a field hunter, 12-year-old thoroughbred mare. And the thing is, they could not understand because when they came with the saddle or the grooming bucket, she would like get really antsy and move from side to side, and often threaten, like snap at them at the air, not at them, but what the air
Yeah.
horses do and pin her ears and move. We all know now that's because of pain. And you have to understand, in those days, 1983, veterinarians, we're talking that these are vets for the Olympic team. The best in the country what they did was measure from the knees and the hocks down. That nothing that we have today with osteopathy and acupuncture, all the stuff that there's so much now that goes on with horses, cranial sacral work with horses, but all they did was measure from the knees and hocks down. And so I walked up to this mirror and I just quietly put my hands on her, just like with the intention and message to this mirror, just quietly. I'm not going to do anything to hurt you. And she got really quiet. And her owner standing there said to me, actually, it was the girlfriend of the owner, said, wait a minute, why is this horse not threatening you? And like, why is she not pinning her ears? What's your secret? Is this like what's going on? And I said intuitively, without thinking, Catherine, I said, listen, don't worry what I'm doing because it's not something that I had thought before. I said, just go up, put your hand on the shoulder, and I said, push the skin in a circle. I didn't say a circle and a quarter, I said a circle. And when I said this, I thought, what? I, what is this? And what came through my mind at the moment is this is some kind of message from the spirit of the horse because it's not something that was part of the Feldenkrais work, not circles on the skin.
No.
But I didn't tell her I didn't know what I was talking about. So I just wanted to go up and push the skin. We say move it now, not push, in a circle. And then when the horse got really quiet, didn't pin her ears, didn't move away. And then I just said, just follow that, just do long lines of this on her body. And she did, and the horse was really quiet. And I thought, that's really interesting. And she said, how do I learn this? And I said, listen, it takes years. It takes years to learn this wonderful Feldenkrais. I mean, 4 years.
Yeah.
I said, and I thought, all I have to do is just start following the circles and see where it takes me. And so in the beginning, when I started writing about it, we found if people practice together, like if you just try this, if you're watching this, just catch the skin, imagine the face of a clock on your skin and move around, just move the tissue. It doesn't work if you just move over the skin, feel it. Catch the skin and lightly move in one circle, like from six around to your imaginary six, and then up a quarter of a circle, depending upon which direction you're going. If you're going clockwise, it'll be up to 9. And we just found that, wow, what began to happen is that when we did this, we could reduce pain in the body, and we could certainly reduce fear. And that is so interesting. So that's how the circles began. And then we just over the years, we kept, first of all, I'd have a horse demo and I'd be working on a horse, and then I'd have people stand up. I'm sure you probably experienced this with me or with Robin, stand up and pick a partner and just lead them through some of the touches on their own body. And it was so interesting. People started saying, wow, I have less pain in my back there, or I just feel more confident. And over the years, we found it's absolutely phenomenal. And after many years, I finally realized only in the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, wait a minute, what's behind all of this is actually energy. And I use that energy, that term, with the understanding of energy from the quantum science, quantum
Mhm.
physics point of view. Because when I was doing, before Feldenkrais, we visualized a lot that we could just think, and that horse would, I can imagine them extending a stride and just really change impulsion just across the arena from a horse. But when I did the Feldenkrais training, we weren't ever allowed to use the word, energy, because there was no explanation for it at that point, scientific explanation. And Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais was a scientist with a PhD from the Sorbonne. And so we could not use that, of course. And then when I realized, finally, from the quantum physics point of view, it's proven. I mean, energy is everything. Energy is, whether it's physical or just in the quantum field, it's everywhere. And it's every thought we have, every feeling, every emotion, and every belief. And if you're interested, I got this from Greg Braden's book, Spontaneous Healing of Belief. And that is so important because what we think and feel, just holding that infinite possibility for change,
Yeah,
by seeing the beauty, seeing the perfection, seeing this body's phenomenal ability to heal itself. And what we're doing with this circle and a quarter, it's like I'm just reminding, just supporting, acknowledging, seeing this amazing universal divine consciousness in every cell in the body to work in a perfect way, like in the ultimate potential for healing. So that's where it's
absolutely.
come to over 50 years. Because for years we'd say, don't hold any intention, because if you just hold the intention that this will heal, you'll interfere with the process because you're putting your own, limitations on the body. So
Yeah. I love it. And that book is oh, behind my banner on my thing. It's there ready for me to read when I get 5 minutes.
Oh, great. And let me remind you
Hmm.
that in his books, I mean, so many of Greg Braden's books have really made a difference in my understanding of how we work with our animals. And the secret for me is when I look at a horse, can be something really wrong. But you know, when a horse has a problem, we focus on that. Instead of saying, wait a minute, look at all the parts that are working, that are okay. And I hold that reminder to the body, look at, let's just focus on what works. And yes, I see maybe that horse is a little off. And yet I know I can hold this possibility with the various work that we do with the Tellington method, whether it's work on the ground or on the body, that we can have the possibility of making a change by supporting that body's incredible ability to heal.
Absolutely. I love it. And that other book that you always recommend is something about molecules by Candice Pert, is
Candace
it?
Pert, yes, Molecules of
Yes.
Emotion. Dr.
Oh,
Candace Pert,
amazing book.
isn't it incredible? And her work was proving that actually the thought when we have a problem in the body, we think it's in our head, but it's actually the cells hold the memory of physical stuff in the body. And
Mm.
it's through the chemical connections that we actually think it's in our head. So when we find the areas of the body that are sensitive or afraid to be touched, and we can actually touch with 1¼ circles in the air around it or very gently around the area where there's pain or discomfort and reduce the pain. And the thing that's important, Catherine, is to think of just people think, oh yeah, it's work on the body, it's massage, right? No, it's not massage. It's a message.
Yeah,
It's a message to the cells holding that beautiful potential for ideal function at the cellular level.
it is. It's brilliant. And it makes me laugh because I've been doing this. When did I start? About 10 years ago now, I started. And a couple of years ago, I was doing some gardening and I dropped this enormous stone on my foot. And so my foot was like in size and the bruising, and I'm like, well, I don't know if TTouch will work. I was really skeptical about it working on myself, yet I know full well it works with the dogs. But I did the little raccoon touches like round the edge of the really sore bit. And I was just astounded. I was like, I don't know why I didn't believe it would work on myself, even though I know it works with the dogs.
But how could we possibly believe that such a simple thing? Because
Mm,
you always think when you work on the body, you know, if it's physical therapy, it's with a lot of pressure. And I mean, we have this the basics, the elements of T-touch include pressure, that is contact with the body, from 1 to 10. And yet, on most, like if there's an injury in a horse, or a dog, I'm sorry, I talk about horses because we started with this, but
that's okay.
almost every horse person has a dog. So we started very early on working with dogs. And it's just this very gentle, like if you think if you have an injury, the contact that you can use to move the skin on your eyelid in a circle, just these gentlest movements. So it does not, you can feel the eyeball, but it's not scary. It's so light. It's just moving the skin. That's a 1. And a 3, because we use scale 1 to 10. A 3, and what I recommend, and just do this for your catch the elbow, bring a thumb to on the skin. And the reason is if I'm just holding my arm out like this, I can feel muscles in my back working. So I get really quiet, catch the skin with the thumb, and then do very the lightest possible circles on the eyelid is a 1. To get a 3, find this cheekbone, feel the edges of this cheekbone, and actually put enough contact that you say hello bone. And again, I catch with the thumb, and you see how beautifully Catherine's fingers are moving all together in a circle and a quarter. It's not just one finger or the other held up. It's just let them move together and feel when you feel the skin, I mean the bone under the skin in a comfortable way, but clearly feel it. That's a 3. Now, how come we say 1 to 10? Because if you're used to massage and you let work on your body, it'll be like a 10 in if you like deep massage. And it's rare if you go to a massage that you get less than an 8. So
Mm.
why are we doing just this? Why are we moving so lightly? Because TTouch is a message. It's like a whisper, a connection with this intelligence in every cell in our body who knows has a potential for healing the body. So that's what we're talking about.
Amazing. And Linda, can you give us tell us about the heart hug? Because that's a really,
Yes.
really cool one for us, isn't it?
So I'll tell you how the Heart Hug started. Um, in the 80s, I was doing one of the first 6-day trainings. It was like a retreat where people came to learn T-touches. So they had half a day with T-touch and half a day with Feldenkrais with Mia Siegel, who was one of the phenomenal Feldenkrais teachers. And so a woman came to me at lunchtime and said that I I think T-touch could help her. Her profession was um oh, think a second, what do you call it? She was she did hypnosis, and she had tried every kind of therapy to get rid of this fear that she had had in her as long as she could remember. But no physical work on the body had taken that away. And she asked me, could maybe T-touch help? And I said, well, I don't know, but I believe you can do it so it won't hurt. And just imagine putting one hand over the other on the chest and just imagine like taking a clock off the wall and putting it here on the chest and look at it from the outside and very gently catch the skin with some part of your hand and move the skin. Imagine like your 6 is toward the ground, 9 toward my right shoulder, 12 in the direction of the skin, and 3 to the left shoulder. Very gently, one circle and a quarter. So I'm going like 6 to 9 to 12, 3, 6, 9. Take a nice deep breath and release. And so I said, just try it. I don't know how it will be. And she went out for lunch and came back after lunch and with tears in her eyes and said, it's the first time I've been able to stand here like this and not had this fear, this dread. Now, this can be for numbers of things, and she hadn't done any work with the therapist helping her with what the trauma that can happen to the body that can cause that fear. But anyway, that's how we found out that, wait a minute, we can also release fear at the cellular level. And that's later, years later, when I read Dr. Candace Pert's book, Molecules of Emotion, I understood why actually working on the body with this light, non-threatening pressure can make a difference in releasing old trauma. And then I was giving a talk years later. We did for many years, we did these 6-day trainings for dogs and horses in South Africa. And when
Mm.
I was there, I would always go out to Soweto and we would share T-touch for the caregivers. And what we discovered is that when I taught this to orphans in a beautiful half a day of exchange with these caregivers and a huge group of orphans who had come together. And I had them do the T-touch. And when you put one hand over the other like this and very gently, very lightly move the tissue, it's like a hug. And that's where it got the name the Heart Hug.
Brilliant. And we can do this on our, oh, I got a dog handy. There we go. We can,
Yeah,
for our dogs, let me turn it
yes,
around this way so I can do right-handed. Here on their chest is
yep,
really lovely, isn't it?
it is. And my dog is in my office, and I'm not
Is
in my office right now.
is that a rabbit?
This is a bunny. This is a bunny, and this is a tiger. And
Brilliant.
we got this guy to help us with a group of seniors in a home for dementia and Alzheimer's. And with people, not knowing people they don't know being touched by them, it's really scary. But if you have this Tigger, I mean, who can resist Tigger, right? Not
Absolutely.
possible. And so we do TTouches on Tigger and just show them what we were going to do and then do it on them. And
Mm,
with children also, it's just beautiful because, it's kind of scary for someone, a child doesn't know to have you T-touch them.
yeah.
And Tigger always is there to help. Where's his friend? Can I have another friend? Oh, yeah, look at this guy. I was showing him yesterday on a podcast that I did. Look at this. He's got wings.
Oh, amazing.
Teddy bear with wings. Isn't he great?
Amazing. That's fantastic. And what was I going to say? So, as well, when we are doing these circular touches on our dogs or any animal, we also have to be mindful about how much movement is possible, isn't it? Because if I've got my hand flat, my skin moves quite a lot. But if I make a fist, then it hardly looks like there's any movement, isn't it? But it's still doing the same thing.
Well, and the thing is, you can feel it on your nails because if you have
Mm.
dogs who are afraid of having their nails clipped, if you do these little circles down the legs, I should bring my dog in here and show you, and just go down the legs and then down the foot and on the nail, put one thumb, try it on your own nail, one thumb
Yeah.
under and another finger on the nail. You're not moving the skin, are you? And feel it. You can really feel that circle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Isn't
this
it
is
wild?
how it is. It's crazy. And this is how things like tortoises, turtles, whatever kind of with shell,
Right.
they can still feel it, can't they? Even though they haven't got skin to move, but their shell is very much like our nails, isn't it? It's that still
Right.
they can feel that.
Exactly.
It's
And
amazing.
it's not like we're making a circle over it. Do that. If you make a circle over it, it has a very different effect than if you just
Mm.
roll over this finger. I'm just rolling around. And you can really feel that circle in there, can't you?
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And I
what
think this finger doing it also gets some benefit.
totally.
Uh,
And we did that. We've done this on people, just having a person stand there, holding onto a chair and picking up a foot and doing the T-touch on the bottom of the person's boot, just like on the nail. And you can feel it all the way up into the ankle. So with your horse, when you pick the foot up and you do it on the bottom of the hoof, you can also get this feeling and really lovely movement in the fetlock joints.
Amazing, amazing.
And then your
Linda,
dog.
sorry, go
Sorry.
on.
I
After
keep
you.
talking about horses. I have to go back to dogs. Sorry.
That's okay. I do like on their little doing little tea touches with their pads on their feet. It's ever so
Exactly.
cute. Really, really cute.
Huge. And it
Mm.
grounds them. It gives them such confidence in having that connection to the ground.
Yeah.
And you started to mention it, this idea of putting one hand on your dog's chest and one up on the withers. And just one hand stays still and the other just makes this circle in the quarter. So you can do a heart hug to your dog. And
Mm.
it's really beautiful.
Which
Yeah,
would look
that's a
uh,
beautiful dog. Oh my
it
goodness.
is. It's got a bit of a funny head, but so one hand would be here and then the other hand. So
Right.
this one, but
Yeah.
this one is just
Well,
supporting.
you can decide which feels best to you also.
Mm.
You can hold with the chest and circle on the withers or the other way around. See what you like, what your dog seems to like and what feels good to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Oops. Right.
And
Amazing.
I didn't mention one thing, Catherine,
Mm.
I think we have to add into here.
Yeah.
Whether you go clockwise or counterclockwise should be what feels right to you. And I can't tell with the animals. I think it has, with the dogs or the horses, I think it's more what feels comfortable to the person, because we found that about 20% of people who have T-touch done on them actually prefer the counterclockwise, but that means 80% really prefer the clockwise. And there are a few, it doesn't matter.
No.
So it's worthwhile finding out what works for you, clockwise or counterclockwise.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when I'm working with my dogs and I'm like, just, I'm just going with it, and I kind of actually concentrate for a second and go, oh, that was actually anti-clockwise. Oh well, I'll carry on. And so yeah, it is that kind of intuitiveness of just feeling and like listening with your hands, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's true. And then you can logically decide, wait a minute, my hands went anti-clockwise. How does that actually, do I prefer that or the other? And try both, explore it a little bit.
Mm, definitely. And Linda, when we think about visualizing the clock and the numbers, and then we kind of attach all these wonderful animal names to the T-Touch, why are we doing that?
Okay, so why we did it in the very beginning is I was leading a group to Australia. We used to call it Transformation on the Trail, and I had to think about maybe 18 people with me. And we went to Australia and we rode camels in the outback, and we went and swam with the dolphin way over on the northwest coast. And so during the day when we were camping out with horses at one point, hearing the kangaroos eating around us in the tents and jumping around, one of our members, Marnie Reeder, led us in some Tai Chi movements, and they were so beautiful. These different names, the cloud and the horse. And at that point, we'd started off giving numbers, and we had numbers 1 to 5, like the clouded, what we call the clouded leopard, where you use the pads, about 2/3 of the pads of the fingers move. That was a number 1. And we had 1 to 5. And when I thought, wait a minute, how many numbers can we remember? And then Marnie started teaching us these different beautiful Tai Chi names. So we started giving names to the different parts of the hand that we use. So we could identify which part can you use, and we'd give it an animal name. And they were almost all of them have been named after animals I have worked on, like the clouded leopard was an animal, a little young leopard I worked on in the Los Angeles Zoo, and the bear touch, and all these different touches that we have. So what we discovered years later, when a very well-known therapist in the United States heard that I was doing this with this work, she said, "Oh, interesting. Linda is bringing nature into her work." Because when you think about, wait a minute, I'm doing a clouded leopard, or I'm doing the turtle, or one of these, it's like we bring that species of animal into the work, into it. And what's really interesting, during COVID, it was said in the United States that we've got a real problem with nature deficit, because they found that kids didn't want to go out and get muddy or dirty playing outside like we all did as young people. We were outside all the time with our horses or our dogs or our
Yeah,
rabbit, right? Yeah.
absolutely.
And so when we bring the animal names into it, it's like we're bringing just the energy of the animals, the recognition of these amazing animals on the planet.
And we're also activating both sides of our brain, aren't we?
Exactly. And that is another thing that's really important. This concept that the reason I say imagine, like visualize a clock on the wall, and take that imaginary clock and place it on your chest and look at it from the outside. Now, the reason that I say visualize that, anything to do with visualization activates the right side of the brain. And the right side of the brain is responsible for feeling, which We lost so much connection and feeling that because of COVID.
Mm,
Feeling, creativity, intuition, and compassion are all right brain activated by the right brain. The really important left brain is activated by numbers and methods. And that's why I say, okay, take this imaginary cloth, put it here, imagine number 6 down toward the ground, 9, 12, and 3, and do 5 quarter circles. So you go like 6 up to 9 or 3. Just remember, it's play around with it, experiment and see what works best for you at that moment with that animal or with yourself. And it's just think of 5 quarter circles. And these are all numbers, and that activates the important right brain. What is, left brain, sorry. What is the responsibility of the left brain? It's right and wrong, black and white, making judgments. And so when a person is raised without playing outside, without imagining and running around and playing like kids used to have a chance to do, we're really limited by this left brain. Has to be logical. Don't trust your emotions. That's something that many kids were told. And emotions are so important. And it's part of that feeling of the right brain.
mm. That's that gut feeling, isn't it?
It's
Always
that
trust your
gut
gut
feeling.
feeling.
Exactly. And we who work with animals get that, trust that gut feeling. But it's amazing when you think of people who don't work with animals, don't trust that gut feeling.
Mm,
Don't trust that. And that really limits our potential for creativity
yeah,
and
absolutely.
compassion, caring for people and animals and the Mother Earth. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So exciting, isn't it?
I love it. It's brilliant. Right, Linda, I'm going to stop you there because we have talked about the circular touch, but you'll be joining us again towards the end of the month to finish off our 50 years celebration. All right.
Great. How
Thank you
exciting.
so much for coming and lovely to see you.
And you. Blessings.